My name is Mike Price, and I own a cluster of vintage stores called Little Horse Vintage. And we're standing in the Louisville location, which is technically my third official location. I opened in Boulder right around 2000 in a small garage that I was helping clean out and renovate, and the owner let me sell some furniture and other things out of that store, and that was way back in 2000. And in 2011, I moved out here to Louisville, and now I've had this store since then. So we sell a variety of vintage items here, and one of the best sellers for Little Horse has been vinyl LP records. Not a big surprise. Records have been coming back for I'd say about 20 years, and getting more popular every year as people get back into the old stereo equipment and love the sound of vinyl and love the packaging of vinyl and whatever else comes with vinyl. But we also sell a lot of other things here: rare books, musical instruments, mid-century modern furniture. We sell lots of smalls or littles, people like to call them. We sell Native American jewelry. I have a lot in case. Native American rugs, and just about anything that has some kind of coolness to it, for lack of a better word. Just things that are unique or carry a lot of nostalgia, and just make people happy. So it's kind of what we do here. And so now I've got this store here in Louisville with a couple of different rooms in this building. I've got a store in Fort Collins, Colorado, and I'm just about to open a store in Boulder, back on Pearl Street, where I began my career a long time ago. I pulled out a few things out of the stacks that I think are interesting, and we'll highlight some of the variants in collecting, the different points that people might care about or might not in collecting records. So first one I've got here is an original pressing of the Velvet Underground White Light, White Heat. This record's interesting because it was misprinted and the cover is upside down on the back. And I am not able to find another copy that has that misprint. So it's really hard to say. I've got it priced fairly high, but it's really hard to say how valuable that is. I just find it pretty fascinating. It's really cool. Not to mention a great band and a great album.
Would you say that in general with vinyl, misprints and mistakes like that make it more valuable?
Yes, they very much can. And of course, the obvious example is the Beatles. The Beatles put out an album called Yesterday and Today that originally had a cover of all of them in white sort of butcher's coats, and they had fake blood all over them, and they had doll parts with their heads severed and flopped all around, and so it's called the butcher cover. They went ahead, shot the cover art, pressed some of the records, and lo and behold, the record executives freaked out, to say the least, and said, we can't put this record out, this will cause all kinds of problems. And so they ended up pasting over the record with the new cover with the Beatles sitting around some travel trunks, and but copies got out. The original copies that were never pasted over, of which somebody, I think in the last 10 years, there was about 10 of those copies that came out, and I think they sold for over 100,000 each. They were just pristine. But a normal second state butcher cover, as it's called, with the paste over, will fetch about anywhere from 1,000 to at most 2,000 if it's in really, really good shape, and that's usually on eBay. I've sold 2 or 3 in the $750 to $1,500 range. So that's a classic example of a misprint that's worth a ton of money. Now there's another album which I can find here. Here's another great example of something that was a big deal. So this is Led Zeppelin 2. This album was originally, I think this came out in the late 60s. And this was produced by a guy named Robert Ludwig, who was a really great sound producer. And Ludwig had finished the mix. They had the album all pressed, and Atom Aragon, who was the CEO of Atlantic, records, took the record home as he usually did with a hot new record, and put it on his daughter's little desktop hi-fi system, all in one little record player. And again, this is late 60s, so you got to imagine not the best fidelity. He puts this record on the little turntable, and it's such a hot mix. Hot means, you know, a loud mix, that it caused the needle to jump all over the record. And he immediately got on the phone, called someone else, not Ludwig, and said, we have to change this. This is going to be a disaster. All these records are going to come back because it's too loud. So lo and behold, the sound engineers just went in and dumbed down the original mix, basically turned it down, and so most of these albums that came out were the new mix, and they just didn't sound good. They sound like kind of muddled and cloudy. So this particular record is an RL pressing. So some records with the Robert Ludwig mix did get out, and it's kind of interesting to figure out how you determine that. This is called the dead wax here around the label. It's where there's no grooves in this part of the record, so they'll put stampers in there. They stamp the identifying number on the record. And so the difference between the regular Led Zeppelin 2 that came out after and this one is that this one has the initials RL scratched in the dead wax, and that stands for Robert Ludwig. So you know you've got a hot mix. And it's really interesting to put this record against another one, put it on a nice stereo, play this one, and then play the other one, and this one just sounds so much better. These records are now going for big money. I've talked to another record dealer where one of these sold for $5,000 on eBay, and he sold his copy, I think, for $4,000 on eBay, and I've sold one, maybe two, and I think I've gotten around $500 for mine. So that's another interesting thing about misprints or things that become more valuable because there were mistakes made. This is a classical album, and classical has not been nearly as popular, one, as it once was, and two, with the younger generation. There just isn't the bandwidth for younger people, I think, to listen to classical unless they've been exposed to it by parents or something like that. So, but another example of records that can be worth a lot of money. This one's priced at $225. Rare recording, really good recording, really good sounding recording, great artist. There's a lot of factors that determine the value of a record. So this in particular, these are surprises that I come across, and it's a lot of fun. I don't sell a lot of classical records, but I do like to look for the valuable ones. It's quite fun. There's not as many in this country as there is in Europe and England, specifically England. There's a lot of really valuable classical records that came out of England. So that's one. Another interesting genre is what's called either a half-speed master or MoFi, which is mobile fidelity pressing. And so these pressings are extremely well done. The techniques and the processes they use to record the music and to get it on vinyl is refined, and so these generally go for a lot more. So this is Michael Jackson's Thriller, but it's a half-speed master, and it goes for $175, and give or take 20% on those prices. But pretty interesting, and a lot of people come in and they're like, whoa, Michael Jackson just had $175 for Thriller, and it's like, no, the regular album is about $30, $35, but this one, sounding like it does, is a little more expensive. Here's another one, John Fahey, wonderful guitarist. He's put out numerous albums. This is one of his early albums. And this kind of shows too the variety in cover art on albums. This is obviously very, very minimalist and plain, but really beautiful in a way too, especially with the title Death Chants, Breakdowns, and Military Waltzes. It's quite arresting. And that's what's interesting about records like these. You get all these different covers with great color, with great art, and it really makes for fun for collectors and people getting into it. So that's what I would say about some of my more interesting records at the store.